Hi, thanks for joining. My name's Kevin Lowe and I'll be chairing the webinar today. I'm one of the Child Accident Prevention Trust's associate consultants and I lead on online learning. Tackling the dangers of button batteries is one of CAP's priorities at the moment, and before I explain the outline of the session today, I'd like to ask Katrina Phillips, CAP's Chief Exec, to say a few words about how this event came together.
Thanks, Kevin, and welcome everyone. It's great to see you all here. In the past 12 months, 2 young children have died after swallowing a button battery, and many more have been left with life-changing injuries. We rely on button batteries to power a growing number of products in our homes, but many of us simply don't appreciate the risks they can pose to babies, toddlers, and preschoolers. We've been talking to the government about our concerns, and now, thanks to the Office for Product Safety and Standards, we can help you to find out more and spread the word. In addition to this webinar, they're supporting us to produce digital content and a range of free printed resources. It's a fabulous opportunity to reach parents and carers with safety messages and help prevent future tragedies. We're really looking forward to working with you and getting the word out to as many people as possible. Thank you.
Thanks, Katrina. So this webinar is going to give you the chance to hear from 3 main speakers, and each has got a special insight into the issues. First of all, we're going to have Rachel Rowlands, a consultant in paediatric emergency medicine at the University Hospital Leicester. And then Holly Phillips, a mum whose son swallowed a button battery, is going to speak with us. And then we'll have Nikki Dowd, a health visiting lead, who's the new chair of Coventry's Child Accident Prevention Group. We're also lucky to have with us today Geraldine Koch, who's an expert on button batteries, and she recently led the development of new industry standards that cover battery design, product casing, packaging, and safe retailing practices. And she'll be able to field any of those super technical, tricky questions. So, quick word on Zoom protocols. All the delegates' mics have been muted, but we'd love to have your comments and your questions, so please post them in the chat and our speakers will respond after their talks. Okay, just to set the scene briefly, so why this event now? Why are button batteries dangerous? Well, I'm well aware that in our group today, we've got some people who know a heck of a lot about button batteries and the harm they can cause children, but it might be new for some people here. So just to set the scene, button batteries are small, round, silver-coloured batteries that come in many shapes and sizes and types, and they power many of the devices that we've got at home that make our lives more convenient. Most of the children who've ingested button batteries have been aged under 6, with a peak at the age of 1, which is also when the highest risk of complications occur. Batteries in noses and ears can also cause serious damage, as well as those that are swallowed. The majority of the children who ingest the batteries take them directly from an electrical device, which might be, say, like a remote control or even a greetings card. Then the next group pick up loose batteries. And then about 10% of the cases where batteries are ingested are children who've taken them from packaging. So most button batteries pass through the body without a problem, but if a lithium coin cell battery gets stuck in the food pipe, the battery and the moist surface reacts to produce caustic soda, and this is a chemical that we use to unblock drains, so you can imagine what that's doing to a child. And Rachel's going to explain what this does. However, the signs that a child has swallowed or ingested a button coin battery, they're not always obvious, and Rachel and Holly are going to tell us about this as well. At least 2 children a year have died as a result of swallowing lithium coin cell batteries in this country. We don't yet know how many children across the UK are taken to A&E, emergency services, or admitted to hospital or suffer life-changing injuries from the batteries. Surgeons at the Great Ormond Street Hospital are seeing 1 child a month with these corrosive burns. So getting the message out to parents and carers is really crucial, and frontline professionals such as health visitors, early help workers have a real key role to play. And Coventry has got a long history in this field. And Nikki Dowd is going to explain how they've pulled together a strategy, and she's going to share the detailed current plans they've got to use CAP's new resources. Our speakers have got powerful stories to tell, and it goes without saying that some of what they're saying is going to be upsetting. First of all, I'll ask Rachel Rowlands to begin. She's a consultant in paediatric emergency medicine at University Hospital Leicester, and we're really grateful that she's been able to get cover to be here today, because that's not easy in the role that she plays. And if you've got any questions for Rachel, please post them in the chat. And what we're going to do is we're going to have a Q&A session after our second speaker, Holly, has spoken, so that Rachel and Holly will take questions together. So Rachel, it's over to you.
So as I say, I am a children's A&E consultant, and I look after children as my job. And as a junior doctor, I learned that button batteries were dangerous. That's something that we all do learn. But it was only really when I was working in Australia that the message was really brought home to me. And I just want to quickly show a couple of pictures of little boys who made me the doctor that I am today, and made me have this as my soapbox and what I bang the drum about on a regular basis. And I've been able to get involved with CAP through. So this young man is a little boy called Takahu, who lives in Perth in Western Australia. He's a toddler in this picture, but when I saw him, he was a 10, 11-month-old baby. He'd swallowed a button battery, which his parents had taken him straight to hospital. It had been removed. He was in hospital for about 4 or 5 days afterwards, getting better, and then had been discharged back home to his home, which was a number of hours away from the main hospital in Perth. 3 weeks after he was sent home, he vomited bloods, and so mum took him straight back to the hospital again. And when I met him, he was about to go up to the ward, but essentially collapsed in front of me. And Takahu's one of the only children who's actually survived what we call an aortoesophageal fistula, which I'll explain a bit more afterwards. But essentially, he had a severe life-threatening and usually life-ending complication following a button battery ingestion, even though his parents had done all the right things. I came back to Leicester, and within about a month of arriving back in the UK, this little boy, whose name is Wasim, came through the A&E department. He again was brought because his parents saw him vomit blood, and they thought that was very unusual. He was admitted to the hospital and was up on the ward and doing okay, but unfortunately then had another large vomit of blood and collapsed. And during his resuscitation, an x-ray that was taken to check that the tube that we were using to ventilate him was in the right place, showed what turned out to be a button battery sitting in his stomach. His mum and dad have no idea where he got this button battery from. They don't remember him swallowing anything. It was never given to us in the history. And it just goes to show that you can never be too careful. Sadly, we weren't able to save him. And again, a lot of what we've done in Leicester is on the back of this case. So why are button batteries so dangerous? What do they actually do? Well, essentially what happens is toddlers, as we all know, if we're parents or if we have contact with kids, love putting everything in their mouth. So they like swallowing things, they like exploring things with their hands, they like pulling things to pieces. So they will go and pull apart the remote control or get the scales and start investigating. And although toys often have screwed compartments to keep batteries in, other things around the house don't. And essentially, when it's normal development to put things in your mouth, and when you put a button battery on your tongue, it actually tingles and fizzes. Now, please don't try this at home. Just take my word for it. But it feels quite nice in their mouth. So sometimes they will swallow them, or they'll put them up their noses or in their ears. And when the battery, as you saw in that video, comes into contact with a moist surface, such as the nose or in the throat or the esophagus or the food pipe, it essentially causes a chemical reaction. And the thing that is produced is caustic soda. So it's what we put down drains to unblock them. And it's a really strong alkali, and it burns and causes a lot of damage. So it's not the battery leaking or anything like that. It's literally the chemical reaction it gets from sitting against a wet surface. And it doesn't just cause damage there. I try and describe it to the junior doctors that it's a bit like a force field, sort of a plasma ball, a bit, like Marvel character-esque type thing. And so it's not just what the battery is against that it causes the damage to, it actually causes damage to things surrounding it. So if you put it in your ear, then the small bones that help you hear can get damaged. If it's stuck in your food pipe, you're going to damage your food pipe, but there's also your heart and all sorts of vessels behind your food pipe that can get damaged as well. So it's really important to realize that it's not just what it's touching that it's going to cause damage to. It causes much more widespread damage, which is why they're so dangerous. As you can see from this chest x-ray, this child's swallowed a button battery. We can tell it's a button battery and not a coin, because that's always what people worry about, because it's got what we call this double ring. It's probably quite difficult to see on your screens, but there's sort of an inner ring and an outer ring, and that's because the batteries are wider on one side than the other side. So that helps us as doctors to diagnose that it's a battery. And this will be damaging this child's esophagus, its food pipe, but also this big shadow here is the heart, and all the big vessels that supply blood to the rest of your body are going behind that battery. And in Takahu, who I showed you at the beginning, what actually had happened is his food pipe had been damaged and the vessels at the back had been damaged. And as they healed, they stuck together, and there was a tiny pinpoint hole between those two things. So every time his heart pumped, he was pumping blood into his esophagus and into his stomach. And it was only tiny, and it took a long time to find it, but that, pretty much nearly killed him. And we were just very lucky that he collapsed in an A&E department with an entire team around him. So as we said, button batteries, they're everywhere these days. We rely on our electronics, and everything seems to be powered by them. And CAPT have done brilliant work at trying to highlight to people that it's not just toys, but it's the remote controls that power the LED lights that your teenager has in their room, or it's the thermometers that we all now have because of COVID, because we all have to check our temperatures all the time, or the little LED lights that the candle flicker lights. I had these all over the tables at my wedding a few years ago, and I had to give a little speech at the beginning, please telling everybody not to let their child swallow a button battery at my wedding, because that would look really bad on my profile. So they are everywhere, and they're in little things that kids get into, and because they're not toys, they don't necessarily have to have sealed compartments, and that's the important thing. Again, this video, the picture that CAPT have done about the house and where you can find them as part of your battery hunt is absolutely brilliant. Fidget spinners, RoboFish, and I'm so pleased to see that after a lot of people getting cross on social media, that you can no longer buy fish food for your RoboFish. I mean, what else? This is just ridiculous. You put a packet of batteries and you label them as food. That's just asking for trouble. And I'm really pleased that we've managed to get rid of that now. And you can no longer buy these particular packets of batteries. But it's not tricky for children to get into battery packets. It's much better these days, but they still do sometimes take them out of the packet. Equally, if the batteries are dead, they can still cause damage. So you need to dispose of your batteries carefully, and make sure that they are put somewhere in a locked drawer, preferably, and then disposed of in your local battery recycling centre. And as Kevin alluded to, if a child comes in vomiting blood in Leicester A&E department now, and they are pre-verbal and can't tell us a decent history, we will do an x-ray of their chest and upper abdomen to check that they have not got a button battery in there. And that's just because we think that the radiation we expose them to is worth the risk of missing a button battery ingestion. But some children don't present with vomiting blood, or they don't have blood in their poo, and they're just not quite right. And the health service investigation branching report that was done talks specifically about a child who just wasn't right. But it's about, as parents and as doctors and as health professionals, realizing that, if you think the child refusing to eat and drink is because of a sore throat, in a couple of days that should be getting better. Viruses should get better, or if they've needed antibiotics should start working. So I guess my take-home message to everybody is that if there's a child who's just not getting better in the way that you think they should, just keep button batteries in the back of your head, because it could be that, and it's an easy enough thing to look for and to find out if it's there. And to anybody who's dealing with families, please, if the child swallows a button battery, don't delay, get straight to the A&E department and let us deal with it. And as I say, lots of kids who I see who've swallowed them, it's out of their stomach, it's passing through their gut. We don't need to do anything else. It's just if they get stuck, if they slow down and get stuck, which is why they're more damaging in the tiny kids, that's when they start causing problems. So yeah, please just raise awareness as much as you can, and I'm very happy to take any questions. And again, thanks very much for inviting me along today.
Oh, thanks so much, Rachel, for being so concise and getting to the point. And you've really set up it very nicely for Holly's talk and contribution, because that's what Holly experienced, a child where it just wasn't right. And we're really, really pleased that Holly's prepared to come here and talk with us about what happened. And so, Holly, over to you.
Hi, so I don't know if anyone's seen or ever heard about Ralphie. So Ralphie swallowed a button battery the day before his first birthday. So I was cleaning up my 5-year-old son's toys, and Ralphie came in and tried to help me, and he made a strange face, and I thought, oh, he's making a funny face. I've not seen him do that before, and he was chewing like that. So I tried to get it out and he swallowed it. I thought, oh, he's probably just found a Cheerio that he's hid around the house. Didn't think anything of it. 10-15 minutes later, he was screaming really violently. I've never heard him scream like that, and he wasn't really a crying baby. So I gave him some milk. He refused that. He was really dribbling. I thought, he must be teething. He's just clearly very unwell. Another 10 minutes passed, and then he started vomiting. But it wasn't like a normal sick vomit. It had the strongest acid smell. And there was like black and blood in it. And I thought, there's something really not right. There was something in my gut telling me, phone 999. So I phoned 999. They said, we're really busy. Can you get him down to an A&E? I said, absolutely fine. I'll drive him down myself. We went, he was checked out, he had a metal detector, and she said, no, I think he's just swallowed something sharp. It's probably just cut him on the way down. He'll be fine to go home. So we went home. I went to work, and while I was at work, I just had this awful gut feeling something wasn't right. So I went home, checked on him, and I picked him up, and he projectile vomited again, and it was the same colour, but there was a lot more blood in it. So I found another ambulance. They came and took us, and they said, no, something's really not right. We need to get him to A&E. So we went back. We saw the head nurse, and he was like, I'm going to call the doctor down because I really think we should get an x-ray in. So we done an x-ray, and the way the room changed, I just knew something wasn't right. And Ralphie had open heart surgery a few months prior. So they asked if anything was left behind in him. I said, not that I'm aware of. And then the doctors came down and they said, look, we don't know what it is. I think in hindsight, they obviously did. They just didn't want to scare me. And they said he needs to go to a specialist hospital because it's stuck in his windpipe and it's blocking everything that's coming through. So we got sent to Adam Brooks in Cambridgeshire. By the time we were there, they'd done another x-ray. By the time we came back up, they were like, it is a button battery. It has been in him almost 24 hours. We need to do surgery right away. So they done the surgery. It took 3 hours, and I think quite a big team, because what had happened was it had got stuck. And obviously where it started to have the chemical reaction inside, it had gone through and burnt like towards his lungs. So obviously once he came around, they said it's all amazing. However, this is not going to be an easy recovery. And I think that's what I really want to get out. I think when people think of button batteries, they think of, you know, children have passed away, or it goes straight to their stomachs. They find they don't actually, it's really hard because there's not many children like Ralphie who have walked away from such a horrific accident. And it wasn't an easy journey. You know, I went from having a fully weaned 1-year-old to feeding my son 24 hours through a tube. And it was, you know, we were in for 21 days. It was a long time. And I was very naive to think it would be an easy recovery. And my thing now is raising awareness, you know, the signs and symptoms that Ralphie had, the excess dribbling, the vomiting, the strong smelling vomiting with the black and the blood in it, arching of the back, refusing to feed. And just making sure that if you have a gut feeling that something is not right, you trust your instinct, regardless if you're mum, dad, you know, auntie, uncles, grandparents, anyone, you go with your gut instinct and you do not leave until you have that x-ray, because, you know, the x-ray outweighs, you know, what could happen with a button battery. We've seen what it can do. I've seen what it does firsthand, and I would rather my son have an x-ray every single time than ever experience that, or want anyone to experience. So as a parent and also as a child practitioner, if I had a gut feeling, we had a child in nursery and say they just weren't acting right, I would say, I think we need to phone mum and they need to get them down to the hospital, because I just don't feel like something's right. And if we can program this into people's heads, you know, the signs and symptoms, yes, they're not always the same and not every child shows, but just trusting your instinct can go so far. Because if I did not go back that second time, Ralphie would not be here today. So I think, you know, it's just really important that we can drill it into people about, yes, where button batteries are, what they can come from, where they are in the house, putting them away, but also, you know, learning the signs and symptoms and just really embedding into people, trust your instincts.
Holly, thank you very much. You've really drilled that in, I think. Trust the instincts. And it's so important. And thanks again, you know, that I know you've been through, you know, hell and back, and Ralphie's doing really well now, but thanks for joining us to be here. And I think we're going to throw it open, and we've had a few questions come through. And there's a question from Bertil, and it might be that Geraldine Kosh could unmute her mic, because she might want to jump in and help during this one. She's asked whether there are specific batteries that are more likely to get stuck, and I suppose there's also that question, are there some specific types of button or coin batteries that are more harmful than others?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer that. And thank you so much, Rachel and Holly. That was so interesting. Just a brief introduction. So I'm a product safety expert, and I actually worked as the technical author on a PAS, which is a publicly available specification that came out recently. And we did a lot of research. As Rachel mentioned, in Australia, they are one of the leaders in terms of this safety on these items, and they've been phenomenal in terms of their legislation. If you look in the details, there does tend to be the size, so the larger, which are known as the coin ones. Interesting, you know, if Rachel or Holly or anyone else wants to interject, please do. But because of the anatomy and because of the size, they tend to get stuck more often rather than pass through. So the smaller ones, when you eat and that motion of eating, they may pass through. They can still cause damage, but the larger ones tend to lead to the more serious ones. And they also tend to be, the chemistry of those batteries tend to be more harmful as well. So I hope that answers the question. And
yeah, thank you very much for jumping in, Geraldine. Yeah. That's really, really helpful. I had a question as well for Rachel, perhaps, about long-term effects. Obviously, each child is different.
Yeah. So happy to answer that. Just to reiterate what Geraldine said, so yes, the bigger the battery, the more likely it is to get stuck in a small child. And so, you know, the ones that are in hearing aids and things like that are very, very tiny. They tend to pass through quite quickly and not cause any problems. And essentially, yeah, the longer it's stuck in one place, the more damage it's going to cause. The long-term effects, and obviously it was great to hear Ralphie's story, and I don't know it intimately, but a lot of these kids, if they have had a lot of damage to the esophagus, what happens is as it heals, it scars up and it can narrow a bit. So a lot of these children have to have repeat dilatations of their food pipe.
That's just what Ralphie's been having every 4 weeks.
Yeah. So you have to have, and you know, we get kids who've had these who then come in and they've got a bit of sausage stuck, and that's usually the thing that tells their parents they need a repeat dilatation. And unfortunately, dilatations aren't without risk either. So obviously, if you can avoid having to have them, then you don't want to have them. But yeah, things scar up and can cause problems. Up the nose, you can get some problems with sinuses. As I said, in the ear, they can have actual permanent hearing damage if the bones are damaged. And some children, I know of at least one case where a button battery was caught at the back of the throat, and they've actually had issues with spinal cord damage because, as I say, it's a force field and it's not just the one place that it causes the problems. So it's not just what it's touching. So yes, they can cause lifelong issues. It's not something that you have, it's fixed and you're over it. If you have had to have an intervention for it, then it can cause problems for the rest of your life, essentially.
Thanks, Rachel. This also links a bit with the question that Emma has asked. I think maybe she was picking up on a point that you made. Why does it not cause a problem when it's out of the stomach?
Yeah, so as I say, it's and I see Emma's also asked, why are coin batteries worse than normal batteries? So it's to do with the chemistry. So it's the fact that the button battery, the coin battery, it causes a chemical reaction. So it's a lot of people talk about, oh, it's because the battery's opened up and it's leaking. It's got nothing to do with that. So brand new batteries are just as dangerous as old batteries when you're talking about button batteries. So it's an actual chemical reaction. And the video that I showed, I apologize, the sound didn't come across on it, but that's literally less than an hour. So you get 2 pieces of sandwich ham, put some button batteries on it and a little bit of water and leave it for an hour. And that's what it does to 2 pieces of ham. You can cook sausages with button batteries if you feel the need. So it is really, really quick, the damage that it causes. But it causes that because it's stuck in one place. If it keeps moving, then that's fine. So as I say, in Leicester, if you've got a button battery in your stomach, then we will re-X-ray you a couple of hours later to make sure it's moved out of your stomach, depending on your age. If you're very small, my surgeons just take them straight out. They're not willing to risk it anymore. But yeah, if it's once it's in your bowel and it's moving through with all the poo and everything, then poo's really good. It tends to surround everything and they just come out the tail end and you don't need to worry about it. So yeah, as long as it keeps moving, it won't cause damage. It's when they're stuck that they cause the problems.
Right, thanks. A question for Holly. And Holly, feel as free to sort of not give detail or give detail depending on what you want. I think some people have sort of wondered when something like this has happened about how you feel as a parent. I know you, I've seen some stuff that you've written and you talk about, blaming yourself, and have you found others have been critical of you?
Yeah, I mean, whilst I was in hospital, we had, I had a few comments saying to me, there's some not very nice stuff being said with on the papers and things like that. And I already had that mum guilt. I thought, why did I not turn around sooner? Why? I knew the dangers. I thought I didn't have them in the house, but 5 years ago, I didn't know the dangers of button batteries, and they were in my obviously older son's toys. And it didn't even register that if, they could fall out 5 years later, because I was so sure I didn't have them. But yeah, absolutely, guilt is something that will live with me for the rest of my life. Maybe people could see it as, why wasn't I watching my child? I don't know anyone who watches their child 24/7. And this is the thing, it can happen so quickly. There was an experiment on an Instagram page, and it says, let your child, it was like with magnets or something, and put a button battery in. And I just thought, that's fine if, they're old enough, they understand the damage. But all it takes is them to knock it off the side, a toddler could crawl past and grab it. It happens so quickly. And even if you did watch your child 24/7, if it's there, it's like a magpie. They want it, they see it, they put it in their mouth because it's shiny. And, I think I could have done everything in the world. And unfortunately, it was a horrific accident. And yeah, it is something that is, I'm going to have mum guilt with. And when I've spoken to, other parents who have been through it, we all blame ourselves because, we just think we're meant to be protecting them, but they're in every single person's life. And it is a horrific accident. I think that's what people need to remember. It's an accident, and unfortunately they do happen to children, and doing this, hopefully we can prevent them.
Thank you very much for being so upfront about that, which is I think something that's been so clear in all your contributions that you've made here and elsewhere, so really appreciate that. And that I think brings us on quite nicely to our next speaker, actually, Nikki Dowd, because Nikki's job is about trying to do what you're saying, that you really want, is to get that message out there as far and wide as possible. And as I said earlier, Nikki's the health visiting lead in Coventry, and Coventry have been taking a really strong approach here. And Nikki's also part of an authority sort of wide accident prevention group, which is being able to sort of steer interventions like this. So she's going to talk us through how they're approaching trying to do what we're wanting, you know, reduce the unintentional injuries.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you, Kevin. And as he says, my name is Nikki Dowd, and I am the clinical lead for one of the 7 health visiting teams in Coventry. I'm also the new chair for the reduction in preventable accidents working group. I've only been chair for about 3 months. My predecessor passed it on to me, so I'm quite new at the job. But our key focus is around the 0 to 5 age group. Preventable accidents were identified as one of the high impact areas in the city, and the group was set up in response to reports that Coventry is seeing a higher than average number of unintentional accidents in the home and on the roads, both regionally and nationally. And the group has been going for a number of years now. So as you can see, it's multi-agency, and we work in partnership with a wide cohort of both statutory and voluntary organisations. And this enables us to reach as much of our community as we possibly can. And it's vitally important because it ensures that none of our target areas are missed. We have regular meetings where we all get together and we collate and share a wealth of information and knowledge, and we have up and coming projects, ideas for areas of need, and also for looking at innovative practice. So this shows the yearly calendar that we have, and we work off this. So every month I send out a key message to our link professionals, who in turn cascade that information to their staff and all of their contacts. And that spreads the messages far and wide. This slide, I don't know if you can see it very well, actually, it's quite small there, but it shows a programme of topics that we disseminate, and they generally run alongside a national campaign, or they're quite seasonal. And as you can see, possibly if you've got really good eyesight at the bottom, it does say that the Button Battery Awareness campaign will be delivered again ahead of Christmas in December. So although we are putting that campaign together now, we'll actually be revisiting over time. We use social media to share messages with our clients, and we use this to regularly remind the public of the key themes throughout the year. And now that we're starting to see public places opening up again, and we're starting to get footfall through community areas, we're actually going to start putting together our poster campaigns and information boards in community areas, with some of the really colourful, vibrant resources that we've got. The Button Battery Initiative is something that we're extremely passionate about, and you know, listening to Rachel and Holly, this has given me even more drive to push this forward. And we're just about to embark now on a citywide campaign. We've been able to source some extremely good resources from CAPT, and those have now been delivered into Coventry, and we are going to start disseminating those across the city. Coventry has a high number of non-English speaking families, so we've also been able to get those resources in a variety of our most common languages, so we can start getting those out to our very diverse population. Also, the vibrant pictorial resources that we're getting do help to support our non-English speaking families, and as you could see from the poster, you know, that message is getting out there without having to do too much work to get the point across. But it also helps with our low literacy families, and you know, those that aren't really able to kind of take in a lot of dialogue. On the 1st of June, Sorry, how do I stop sharing that? So on the 1st of June, we are holding a collaborative outdoor event in the centre of Coventry ahead of Accident Awareness Week, and we'll be inviting some of our partnership agencies to come along to that to make it a fun and interactive event. And we will also, use this as getting the messages out around preventable accidents in the home to the wider community. We've enlisted the help of some of our colleagues in the fire service and the police to attend with vehicles. Our Be Active, Be Healthy team will be coming to get the children involved in activities, and we're hoping to get a team to come and deliver basic choking and basic life support sessions as well. We'll have staff from the local authority and from health and other departments on hand to sort of showcase the incredible work that they're doing across the city, and also to promote safety in the home, and giving out resources and freebies, because everybody loves a freebie. So we'll be setting up scenes as well to kind of identify where the hazards around the home will be, things like straighteners and various sort of objects that we would put on display. But we're also going to have a visual display of where you can actually find a button battery. So not only will we have the posters, we'll actually have the visual the actual visual things, and because it's in Coventry, it's right outside Claire's, and as we know, Claire's have flashy jewelry and things like that, so it's going to be really well, hopefully not too hard hitting for them. We are hoping to facilitate more of these events over time, and we're lucky enough to have some really great music festivals in Coventry. We've actually been to the Godiva Festival before, and we're hoping to do that again. And as we know, festivals again bring flashy things, so we're hoping that that will be a really good target area. And we feel really that these interactive events will prove to be really beneficial and invaluable going forward in delivering awareness and bringing about a reduction in our accidents across the city, and possibly not even the city, especially with these festivals and things. It might actually be more nationally as well. And we're just really excited to start getting these messages out there.
Thank you very much, Nikki. That when I saw your schedule of activities, I thought, wow, this is good. And I know there are plenty of other authorities as well. But it's nice that you've stepped up here and taken the opportunity to share what you're doing, and also to highlight that you're using the new CAPT resources, which is really, really good. A few questions have been coming in, and time is getting a bit tight, and we're absolutely determined to stick to the time that we planned today. So, but what we will do is we will follow up with you, those who've asked questions that we haven't been able to answer today. And what I'd like to do now is just say a little bit about those CAPT resources that we've talked about. So as Katrina mentioned at the start, CAPT has created a mix of free resources to support those who are working with parents and carers, and they're designed to help you if you want to create a talking point, or to run a workshop, or to provide essential advice. So I'm just going to share my screen for a moment. First of all, there's a poster, and it illustrates a house showing the products where the button batteries are in every room. And Rachel showed that earlier, and asked the question, button batteries, where are yours? We've also got a dual purpose flashcard and a session plan. And it's basically a visual aid that has got safety facts and tips to share with parents and carers. And you can use this in one-to-one work or with groups. And there's also a flyer that explains the risks, and it offers essential safety tips and advises you about what to do if you suspect your child has ingested a battery. And it's available in both English and Welsh. And one of the questions that was in the chat was about resources in Welsh. As well as the poster, the flashcard and the flyer, there is a fact sheet, then essential information about the risks, where to look for button batteries, what to do in an emergency. And these are available in 7 languages. The poster, the session plan, the flyer, the fact sheet, they're all going to be available to download from our button battery advice hub on the CAPT website. and I'll post the links in the chat in a moment or two. But that's not all. At the end of the week, you can pre-order an illustrated picture book that tells the story for parents who might find written content too challenging, and you'll be able to pre-order from our website. If you're registered with us, you can do that, and you'll get an email very soon to tell you when it's ready. We want the printed resources to reach as many parents and carers as possible, and that's why what we've done is they're all going to be available free of charge, with the delivery charged at the cost price. If your organisation can't afford the delivery charge, don't worry. We've got a special fund to cover that, and you just simply place your order and we'll issue a refund. CAPT also offers training courses on preventing accidents, including how to use our resources effectively, and I'm one of the trainers. So please contact us if you'd like to know more about CAPT's training.